Funding for Market Journal is provided by the Nebraska Soybean Board.
Soybeans are found on dinner tables around the world. Some form of the soybean is found in baby foods, snacks, cooking oils, and many other food items eaten daily. And soybeans provide the protein in the diets for livestock and fish. The Nebraska soybean farmers support research to develop new soy-based products for foods, livestock, and industrial uses through their checkoff dollars. The Nebraska Soybean Checkoff, growing opportunity from the ground up.
Market Journal, television for making agricultural business decisions, is a presentation of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln Extension, where you can know how, know now. Promotional support is provided by the Nebraska Farmer Magazine, and major funding for Market Journal is provided by the Nebraska Soybean Board. The Soybean Checkoff, growing opportunity from the ground up.
Welcome to this week's edition of Market Journal. I'm Jeff Wilkerson. This week, Ron Plain is our hog marketing analyst. We'll talk with Chuck Hibberd, the new Dean and Director of UNL Extension. Robert Tigner gives us an outlook of the dairy markets. Charles Shapiro discusses how drought could affect manure applications. And Kurtis Harms reports on unwanted horses. Ron Plain is our marketing analyst this week. While the USDA did, in fact, lower corn production in its October crop report, hog prices have rebounded, making input costs a bit less severe. The 2012 corn crop is projected to be the lowest yielding since 1995, yet farrowers are only expected to lower numbers slightly. Many analysts believe a large amount of planted corn acres next spring, coupled with tight pork supplies, could support the market. Losses were extreme at the beginning of September when we last talked with Ron Plain, but as he said on Wednesday when we talked again, hog producers have seen a big change from a month ago.
Yeah, it's been rather dramatic, Jeff. We saw hog prices drop from the 90s on a carcass weight basis in late July, early August to the low 60s, $63 at the low about 4 weeks ago, and now we've recovered over half of that drop and back up around $80. So a lot of volatility in the markets, and right now we're headed the right direction. As far as on the feed costs, we've had the same type of situation. We've had soybean meal at times above $550 a ton, and corn prices close to $8.50 a bushel, and lately it's been more like $7.40 a bushel, so a lot of volatility in the markets.
What's your prognosis as you look at feed costs over the next few months?
Well, you know, one of the interesting things, if you look in the futures market, it's not offering any carry. That is, the prices aren't higher in the spring than they are now. Somebody's got to figure out some encouragement for someone to store this crop and own it from now till spring. So I'm kind of expecting the futures market to rally a bit and put in place some incentive to carry corn past the end of this year. So perhaps a little bit higher feed costs come early 2013 than what we've got here during harvest.
For the time being, fourth quarter overall, what are you looking at per head? I'm guessing you're going to tell me it's a loss.
Yeah, it's a pretty safe bet, Jeff. Probably somewhere $40, maybe $45 per head loss. It's a little bit better than what we thought. I think a month ago I talked about $50 per head loss. So it's feed costs have backed down a bit, and certainly this improvement in hog prices is encouraging also.
Exports have been strong, but with the tight supply that's bound to happen here, what do you see going forward with exports?
Oh, it's been a pretty good year. Through August, we're up 9% on pork exports compared to a year ago, and last year was an all-time record, so that's not a bad number. We did very well in the fourth quarter of 2011 on exports, so we're probably going to end up the year maybe only up 5% or so compared to last year on pork exports. But
does Asian demand concern you at all, Ron?
Well, we were very concerned about China demand, but it's still hanging in strong. So right now, we're feeling fairly good about it.
All right, what do you expect to see for consumers? When do you expect them to see that price increase over the store?
Well, September pork prices was down from the month before, down from a year ago. Usually about a month lag, so it's probably going to be our 1st of November before we start to see increase in pork prices based upon what's happened at the farm level lately.
Is there an opportunity here for pork with tight beef supplies? Is there an opportunity for chicken to take a little bit of the market share?
Well, yeah, you bring up a good issue, Jeff. If you look at cattle numbers, slaughters down, it's going to continue to decline. And the calves don't grow up real fast, so we can predict cattle slaughter fairly accurately. And yes, if we can get some feed costs down and some profits in either broilers or pigs, they could well expand and fill in some of that void caused by a small cattle herd.
Price-wise, on the hog side, what are you looking at in the market over the next course of 4 weeks or so?
Well, if you look, normally prices are declining this time of year. If you're going to pick the odds on low price of the year for hogs, somewhere around the 1st of December. So normally you'd think from October to through November you'd be seeing a lower price, but I'm guessing maybe a little bit closer to stable prices this year.
If I asked you to look a year from now, so you're looking at next October, next November, what do you think the state of the industry is then?
Well, I hope it rains next summer and we get some feed costs down a little bit. We're going to have a smaller industry. The hog industry is cutting back fairing intentions for the 6 months beginning on September 1's down 2.1%. So the herd's cutting back. That's going to give us some higher prices. And if we have a good crop year next year, maybe get us back into the black. If we don't have an outstanding crop year, then we're probably going to be cutting that sow herd for a while.
Next week, we'll look at corn and soybean markets with Roy Smith. We traveled Wednesday to the UNL Extension Fall Conference in Grand Island. Held yearly, the conference is a gathering of UNL Extension staff from across the state. A difference this year is the dean and director of UNL Extension's program. After former Dean Elbert Dickey retired this summer, Chuck Hibberd assumed the role on October 1st. A native of Lexington, Chuck was previously the director of Extension and associate dean of agriculture at Purdue University. Before his time at Purdue, Chuck was the director of the Panhandle Research and Extension Center in Scottsbluff for 13 years. We started our conversation by asking what was appealing about coming back to UNL Extension.
Well, you know, two things. One is I did grow up in Nebraska, and I'm a Nebraska alum, and so I have a lot of loyalty to this place. But, you know, coming back is just kind of a perk. The real reason I came back is because UNL Extension is known as a national leader, and I wanted to be part of that, and I wanted to have an opportunity to continue to grow that and to really help us focus not only on our effectiveness, but you know, the new things that we can be involved in and the kind of work that we can do that's really important to Nebraskans.
What allows that success? Is it the variety that Nebraska has?
You know, it's certainly the variety, and this is a big ag state, and that's really important, but we do a lot of other things as well, and those things are important. But I think the other reason why UNL Extension has such a reputation is because of the leadership of the people. You know, we have extension professionals that are involved in the highest organizations across this country. They advise the Secretary of Agriculture, you know, that kind of stuff. And that doesn't happen by accident. That happens because people are doing a great job.
As you look at one of the goals of Extension, trying to get the message out and reach the people in the state, is it tougher to connect with the audience when there's news from everywhere? There's cable news, there's internet. Is it tougher to get that message out?
Well, you know, in a sense it's tougher because there's all these choices out there, but I think what we have to continue to do is develop our credibility as an organization that people can go to for answers, or an organization that people can go to work collaboratively with to develop new solutions or new strategies. And as we have that credibility, then that gives us an opportunity to really engage with folks. And you know, things like this new Rural Futures Institute is going to give us a new way to engage with people who are very interested in the future of rural Nebraska.
I've been told you're also a technology kind of guy.
I love technology, absolutely, and try and work with it every day, but really support people to be more engaged and have more capacity to use technology.
Let's focus on agriculture. What are the obstacles or the challenges that you see going forward here?
Yeah, you know, of course, the great thing about agriculture the last couple of years is our farmers are finally making some money, and it's about time. They were due. They've toiled for many years, and you know, they feed the world, and they ought to get rewarded for that. And so that part, the economy has been really good in agriculture. And of course, this year the drought is a big issue. And the thing we know about droughts is you never know how short or how long they're going to be, and the kind of the multiple multiplier effects of a drought. So it doesn't just affect the farmers, it affects Main Street, and it affects county and state government and all those things. And so, you know, that drought is really a major concern for us, and I think UNL Extension has done a good job of responding to that drought so far, but we have a lot more work to do as the drought maybe continues to develop or maybe goes away.
You're only 2 weeks into the job or so, and we're talking at Fall Conference. The educators that you talk to, the specialists here with Extension, what are their concerns? What are their hopes? What do they talk to you about in the first couple of weeks here?
You know, people are so enthusiastic right now, and I think they're enthusiastic to have new leadership. Certainly the time I spent at Purdue in a similar role there, and Big Ten University, and my experiences there are I think valuable as we try to move forward. But just the new initiatives, you know, the Water for Food, the Rural Futures, I mean, these are big ideas. And I think Extension professionals really like to be part of something important and valuable that makes a difference. And these are ideas that can do exactly that.
The University of Nebraska-Lincoln Extension is part of the Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources and has a network of 83 offices to serve Nebraska's 93 counties. In late July, we reported from Prairie Land Dairy to see how some in that industry were coping with high-priced and sparse feed sources. While that problem continues, the dairy sector was also saddled with extra unknowns after the September 30th Farm Bill expiration. We spoke with Robert Tigner this week to see how that could affect farmers.
Yeah, the MILC, or Milk Income Loss Contract, is going to expire, actually did expire when the old Farm Bill expired. And that was a way for producers to add some additional income. It was meant to have a target price and then get paid a deficiency payment if that target price wasn't met. September's MILC payment is going to be zero, and that did greatly affect the income that dairy farmers are going to get this time.
What does that mean for planning, for trying to, sketch out a budget of any kind?
Well, that's a problem right now because the new farm bill that's being proposed has a insurance program in there to do some of the same kind of things that MILC did. But right now, we don't know, the dairy producers don't know if that section is going to be included in the Farm Bill and when and if a new Farm Bill gets passed. So we're kind of waiting to see what will happen with the Farm Bill.
As you look at that, trying to manage costs, what are they looking at in terms of grain and forage prices?
Well, just like beef producers, they're experiencing many of the same issues, and you really see it when you look at California milk production. California milk production is down significantly per cow. They do have more cow numbers year over year, but milk production per cow is down, and many of those dairy producers are experiencing extremely large losses. I got a phone call from a consultant in California asking, what can we do? And basically, they're trying to look at changed rations, reduced feeding costs, and in some cases, those rations don't perform as well, so milk production declines.
Price-wise, is the price there, and it's just a matter of keeping up with costs, or is it not there either?
Well, the price really isn't high enough to cash flow variable costs. And that's what my budget said is just this past month for September's milk production. Unless someone is in the 24,000 pounds per milk, 24,000 pounds of milk per cow range, they aren't meeting all their cash costs.
As we talked earlier, you said the export market is actually fairly strong right now, but is there a limit to how far that can go if production slides?
Well, probably not a limit so much, but the export market has been very strong the last few years. Since about, the last 3 years has been extremely strong and has trended upward. It's double where it was just a couple of years ago, about $500 million worth of dairy product sales to the export market. It is the real reason that we do have milk prices as high as they are now. Without that export market, we would be in serious trouble with milk prices.
Robert says while it takes a couple of months for increased dairy prices to go from the farm gate to the retail market, consumers will see a quicker rise in the price of fluid milk. Year-to-date consumption in that sector has slid 1.6%, and he believes higher prices could lower that. The silent yield robber continues to spread in Nebraska soybean fields. In the October Nebraska Farmer, you can read how soybean cyst nematode keeps moving west. University of Nebraska-Lincoln Extension specialists estimate the pest causes a loss of $45 million each year in the state. Because identifying soybean cyst nematode is difficult, UNL specialists recommend soil testing, especially in potential hotspots like low areas and flooded sites. To learn more about soybean cyst nematode and how to obtain soil sample bags, you can read the article in the October issue of Nebraska Farmer. As high temperatures and little rainfall punished crops across the state this summer, farmers looking to add nutrients to soils may add another danger this fall with manure applications. UNL Extension soil scientist Charles Shapiro explains how this year may be different from the rest.
Well, the drought, and that affects maybe how dry the manure is in the lots, and then when people scrape it, it'll be different concentration, different weight. So they need to follow our recommendations to sample the manure as they take it out of the lots and then use that analysis for their land application.
What are you looking at sampling for? What are you looking at in the sample?
Well, the most thing are the N, P, and K, which should be, P and K should be about the same. There might be differences in nitrogen loss. Some people have been calling in and asking questions on salt, and so in a standard analysis it would give you your salt load as well.
When you look at the applications, if you do it this fall and you think about tilling it in, there could be a difficulty for a few reasons. I mean, moisture is probably a concern, but also you might not be able to get the disc in the ground in some cases. So what do you look at there?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. If you usually disc it in, and that's a good method where you don't have erosion issues to conserve the nitrogen. We do say that if it sits on the soil all winter, you're going to lose the ammonium part. So if you're changing that part of your operation, then you'll have to adjust the nitrogen credit for the following year.
The danger to applying too much salt would be what?
It basically desiccates the environment near the roots, so it makes it even more droughty situation. Generally in the eastern Nebraska, unless you over apply, we don't have a problem, but with the lack of rain over the summer, a big application last spring, the salts may still be there.
For more information on manure sampling, including locations of testing labs, you can find a link to a recent NebGuide on the Market Journal website. In a few weeks, UNL Extension will begin offering workshops to help landlords and tenants put together a lease that best fits their situations. The Landlord Tenant Cash Lease workshops will be offered in November and December at 27 sites across the state. That's a big increase from the 8 or 9 locations last year. With high commodity prices, land is in demand. And while the workshops will cover that, they'll also cover how drought may impact cropland and pasture rent. UNL Extension educator Alan Denalik explains what he hopes participants will get from the workshop.
Number one, that both parties, both the landlord and tenants, feel like they're better equipped, better understand the situation, better equipped to communicate better with each other, and so there's a better relationship between the two parties, so that there's more trust. I also hope that more people, as it fits them, will go and use flexible cash leases. And then I also hope that some of these miscellaneous things that kind of come up can be handled because we give them that correct information.
The workshops are free and sponsored by the Nebraska Soybean Board and North Central Risk Management Agency. Because participation is limited, you're encouraged to register at your local extension office. The meetings begin November 5th in Dakota City and will end December 13th in Osceola. For locations, dates, and times, you can visit the link on marketjournal.unl.edu. Last week, we introduced the growing problem of unwanted horses across the nation. Horses can become unwanted due to an owner's personal and financial lifestyle changes, or horses can become sick, lame, or injured. Kurtis Harms reports on how the drought is contributing to the problem and what options horse owners have.
Horses can be useful tools in agricultural operations, but sometimes it becomes difficult to care for them. With the 2012 drought, it can be a challenge to secure feed resources.
You know, one great way that we can deal with horses sometimes if we're not needing them a whole lot is to be able to turn them out on pasture. And it's a very economical way that we can house and manage a lot of horses. However, one problem you have when years of drought, then that becomes much more limited. And so it's much more, more expensive for a person to take care of some horses. They need to try to economize and just keep track of the ones that they really, really do need.
One way for horse owners to downsize their herds is to market their horses privately. Horses can be sold locally and also nationally with the help of the internet.
A big avenue anymore is the internet, and you'll see those horses valued in the tens of thousands of dollars down to $500. And so just because a person isn't sure what the use for their horse is or their value, they can sure explore any of those websites and put them on a variety of them. Many of them are free of charge, and so it's a really good way to market some horses. People from all over the country will search horses regardless of what state that they're in.
Local sale barns may also have a horse sale. If horses can't be sold, they can be donated to schools or colleges for educational programs if these institutions have the capacity and resources. Some universities may also accept horse donations to be used for research.
And when I talk research, it doesn't always mean that they do weird things and put those horses down. It might be as simple as a feeding trial that they're looking at different digestive functions. Therapeutic places also can take horses sometimes. So places that are doing therapeutic riding, the hippotherapy, sometimes if a horse is broke enough, maybe has a little bit of age on them, maybe they're not good enough to be a show horse anymore, but they still are sound enough to go around. Sometimes your hippotherapies, your equitherapy places is another good place to take to that will look for horses.
As winter approaches in Nebraska, horse owners need to take stock of their herds. If animals are older or unwanted horses haven't been sold, horse owners may have some difficult decisions to make.
You know, and sometimes you have to decide, if I can't move him and we're getting into winter and is he going to survive, maybe it's time that I just go ahead and put him down. You know, there's different ways and places that can be done. If you're going to put a horse down, I would certainly contact your local veterinarian for some assistance there with the best way to do that. There's various methods that they can do it, and also depending on your location, depending where you're at, you may or may not be able to bury that horse on your own facility, and so you need to have a way to go ahead and dispose of that horse, be it one of the local rendering companies. There's also what they call dead stock removal companies, and so those all need to be put in line and contacted if the decision's been made to go ahead and put that horse down.
Horse owners can bury horses if they have the space, but this may be difficult once the ground freezes. The state of Nebraska requires carcasses be buried at least 4 feet deep, burned completely on the premises, or disposed of to a rendering facility within 36 hours of knowledge of the carcass. Reporting for Market Journal, I'm Kurtis Harms.
You can find more information on dealing with unwanted horses through a NebGuide on the Market Journal website. We now turn to this week's weather forecast with Al Dutcher. You'll notice our climatologist is making what looks to be a fashion statement this week, but he assures us it's only because he broke a more conventional set of glasses earlier. Here's Al with his weekly forecast.
Well, folks, here we are again for the weekly forecast. Before we get to the main forecast, let's take a look at what's happened during this last 7 days. And of course, the big news was last weekend when we seen that upper air low eject out of the southern United States into the Central Plains that brought some thunderstorm activity to areas south of Nebraska, and in particular southeastern Nebraska, where we've seen an area of 2 to 3 inch rainfall occur just south of the I-80 corridor between Lincoln and Omaha, and a little bit of that also hit portions of south central Nebraska. But as you move north and west of that area, we've seen the precipitation totals drop off rather dramatically, and unfortunately for much of the Sandhills region, we didn't see anything in the way of significant moisture, and this is an area that desperately needs it. Then on Wednesday, we've seen another reinforcing shot of cold air move through as an upper air low pivoted across the northern upper Midwest, and that brought in some light scatter shower activity to portions of northeast and east central Nebraska, but areas to the west, unfortunately, missed out on this precipitation. And unfortunately, with the high winds, we did see some fires break out that were rather rapid moving, and this is also a concern of us that we need to see some moisture to alleviate this high fire danger. So do we have anything in the forecast? Let's take a look at the next 7 days, and as we go to the upper air models, what we're going to notice is the big upper air low that was responsible for the high winds is now pivoting out toward the northeast. In its wake, we got a northwest flow across the northeastern part of the state, and we're expecting highs to be primarily in the low 60s as we see some residual cloud cover rotating around this upper air low. Closer to the high pressure system is going to try to build in during the weekend. We're going to see much warmer conditions, and we should make it into the mid 70s to possibly even upper 70s across southwestern Nebraska. Now as we go into Sunday, that ridge starts to build in. We got a nice southwesterly flow in the upper atmosphere. It's going to bring much warmer temperatures into our region, so we're going to be looking at highs across northern Nebraska in the low 70s, and we possibly will hit the 80-degree mark across portions of southern Nebraska. Now as we go into Monday, we're going to start to see some energy moving out, but most of this looks like it's going to be south of the state right now, so on Monday we're not expecting any significant moisture. We're looking at highs in the northwest, closer to this upper trough trying to move in. That'll be primarily in the upper 60s, And then as we get to southeastern Nebraska, closer to the warmer air of this ridge, we'll be looking at highs in the mid-70s. Now on Tuesday, we start to see that trough building closer, and it's going to pump up a little bit of warm air across the southern portion of the state. We're looking at highs again in the mid-70s. And as we get toward northwest Nebraska, again, we're going to be looking at highs in the mid-60s as we are going to be under persistent cloud cover. Now on Wednesday, the system starts to make its way toward us, and we might eject some energy out that might give us some scattered showers, but nothing significant. We'll be looking at highs in the north or in the mid-70s. In the south, we could be approaching the low 80s. As we go into Thursday, now this trough starts to make its move toward us, and we'll be looking at highs approximately in the mid-70s across the northwest. And as we get into extreme southeastern Nebraska, we may be looking at the low 80s. As we go into Friday, now the system starts to make its way, and this looks to be a decent shot of moisture for us. We'll be looking at highs in the lower 50s northwest to the mid-70s southeast. 8 to 14-day forecast does show cooler trend moving in, and in terms of precipitation, above normal to our north, and some of that may actually slip down into the state of Nebraska.
Thanks, Al. As most of the state wraps up harvest, remember that our past interviews on grazing corn stalks, subsequent crop yields, and the dangers of nitrates are all available on the Market Journal website and YouTube page. Next week, Roy Smith is our grain marketing analyst. Until then, thanks for watching. I'm Jeff Wilkerson. We'll see you next week.
Join Market Journal online at marketjournal.unl.edu. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Promotional support is provided by the Nebraska Farmer Magazine. Funding for Market Journal is provided by the Nebraska Soybean Board. The Soybean Checkoff, growing opportunity from the ground up. Market Journal is produced by the University of Nebraska-Lincoln Extension, where you can know how, know now. Funding for Market Journal is provided by the Nebraska Soybean Board.
America's export of soybeans helps the U.S. maintain a positive agricultural trade balance. Nebraska contributes half of its soybeans for export. The protein and oil content in soybeans enhance the growing demand for higher protein diets. The Nebraska Soybean Board promotes research to develop new soybean varieties with higher protein and oil content for major agricultural markets. The Nebraska Soybean Checkoff, growing opportunity from the ground up.